And then let me look at the participants and they should stream in.
Sure.
I'm going to pause recording. I want to say good morning to everybody today. Welcome to today's webinar, New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program Information Session. I want to welcome our presenter today, Judy Hendricks. She has been a project manager for the NMSBA program for 7 years, finding the right scientists and engineers to work with small businesses. Prior to that, she worked at a number of small biotech companies and startup companies, and her contact information is available to you. I allowed Stacy to speak, and I'm going to allow Yolanda to speak. So if you want to introduce yourselves, and then Judy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me? This is Stacy Shane.
Yes, we can.
Hi there. My name is Stacy Shane, and I am the clinic director and owner of Golden West Acupuncture and Wellness in Bosque Farms, New Mexico. So we are in Valencia County, and one of, I think there are now 3 acupuncture clinics in Valencia County, but we are the largest, accepting insurance and working largely with the Veterans Administration and other insurance companies.
Great. And I think we have Yolanda. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm Yolanda Bishop, and I live out in Las Cruces. I'm a registered nurse, and what I'm wanting to do is start my own home nursing business, but it's just an idea right now. So that's why I'm joining these different meetings you're having.
Great. Yeah, glad to have you. Thanks for joining us. Definitely. So I guess I can get started, huh, Chris?
You go for it.
Okay. So, like I say, I'm here to talk about the New Mexico Small Business Assistance. So this program, it's through Sandia National Labs and Los Alamos National Labs. And it's a great free program for small companies here in New Mexico. And the New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program, it's a joint program, between Los Alamos and Sandia. We have 2 national labs here in New Mexico. And it's amazing, the amount of expertise in those labs. So the idea, the state legislation got it right, saying, okay, we got all this expertise in the lab. Sandia, we employ like 14,000 people. Los Alamos probably employs about 11,000. We have tons of engineers and scientists, pretty much any type of background that you can think of. And the idea that the state would think, okay, we have all this expertise in the lab. How can we use that expertise to help our small businesses here in New Mexico? So they created this program, and it's free for the small businesses. You can actually work with our engineers, scientists, designers. The idea that you can do consultation, we can do testing. Maybe you need access to expensive equipment. We definitely have lots of expensive equipment. Modeling. And sometimes people are not that familiar with all the stuff we do here at the labs. So they think of like the engineers, of course, in like energy, solar, wind. And it goes much beyond that. Of course, we got mechanical, optical, we got guys and gals, working with robots, sensors, cybersecurity. We have chemists and biologists, geologists, and civil engineers, chemical, aerospace, environmental, even agricultural. Material scientists, aerosol scientists, if you, and it's not necessarily always like super high tech. Well, I'll talk about some projects we've done in the past to kind of give you an idea. So if you're creating a new product or a new service, there might be a way we could work with you that you can leverage the expertise at the labs to help you with your business. So yeah, the idea, what's your challenge? You know, we do talk about, of course, yeah, the technical challenge. You need testing, design, consultation, access to really expensive equipment, maybe testing a model. There's certain things we don't do. You know, we don't create a website or an app because we don't want to compete with commercially available stuff. So if you're want, you know, just something like a website created, there's people, you know, in New Mexico that can do that kind of thing. So that's not something we would do. But yeah, access to maybe expensive equipment, microscopes, mass spectrometers, fire testing, drop zone testing, you name it, we probably can do it. And we partner with many people. So it's not just the labs, it's actually universities and MEP, the Manufacturing and Extension Partnerships. That's something, manufacturing extension partnerships, they are the experts in lean manufacturing. So the idea when you're setting up your manufacturing, or even if you're testing, or if you're doing, you know, a service business, there's always things to look at how to make it more lean, right? So MEP, we partner with Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. They're really interested in keeping manufacturing here in the state of New Mexico. We also work with the University of New Mexico, with the business school and the engineering. So sometimes if you need help with expeditionary marketing, disruptive marketing, we do projects with them. And of course, New Mexico Tech and New Mexico State, a lot more agricultural projects, though we do some here at Sandia also. So success stories, people we worked with in the past, and you know, these are more technical, but it could be really anything. Emerging technology ventures, they were working with drones. They're in Alamogordo looking at wings of airplanes looking for defects. And they came to us. So they already had a prototype drone, but they needed some help implementing it. So we worked with their software engineers for that type of project. Analytical technologies, he's out in Farmington. He had solar panels that were standalone solar panels that he was creating. So he just needed a little bit of help. Some other like maybe as not as much technical. Cisneros Brothers in Berlin have created air ducts for homes. And they were getting into the pharmaceutical market, and they had, first we worked with them to kind of help them with their design. They created a prototype, and then we did testing. So we also worked with a woman, she had created a sewing tool. So she had, her and her husband working in the garage, created a new sewing tool, but she needed some help testing the prototype. And I actually found an engineer. She was a seamstress before she was an engineer, and she did the testing for the prototype. So pretty much any, you know, whether service or products, we've done those kind of projects. And to look at, you know, what are the qualifications? You have to be a New Mexico company, for profit, and small business. We use the state tax ID number. It used to be the CRS number. Or if you're a sole proprietorship, that's fine. We can work with that. And like we say, we're looking for what kind of technical help or unique help you need that's not readily available through the private sector at a reasonable cost. The company, you don't receive cash or equipment, but hopefully you get your problem solved. And all the work must be completed within the same calendar year. So actually, usually we talk about, 3 to 4 months, hopefully, from once we get the project started. So for the individual projects, works with, we have one business saying they have a challenge. Like I was saying, you often maybe testing their prototype, doing evaluation of whatever they might be developing or thinking about. Maybe they need imaging. We had Osada, they make actually a paste for solar panels, and they needed some, high electron microscope imaging to see what their product was actually doing. So we were able to, we take their prototype product and do some imaging, and then they get the results. Sometimes we do modeling. Of course, we have a lot of guys that are, very advanced in modeling. So for companies, we talk about the amount of assistance. The company's not receiving the money, but if you're urban counties, Bernalillo and Santa Fe, you can get up to $20,000 worth of assistance. That's $20,000 of the engineer or scientist time to solve the problem. Rural counties outside of Santa Fe and Bernalillo can get up to $40,000. And they did that because the state legislation wanted to help the rural companies a little bit more. So, and the funding really is used to pay for the engineers or scientists' time to work on that project and write the report. So for the individual, like I say, if you're in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, Bernalillo County and Santa Fe County, you get up to $20,000. It's considered unburdened time. So it's still quite a bit of time. And like I say, hopefully once we start, it might take 3 to 4 months for the engineer to finish working on your challenge. Rural counties can get up to $40,000. So the state legislation said we really are trying to help rural counties. And we work with, we've worked in all the counties throughout New Mexico. We also have leverage projects, which can be when a number of companies come together, like the guys, battery, there's a bunch of battery companies in Alamogordo. They kind of come together, they write a proposal, and they do a little presentation saying, here's the problem, here's the solution, and all the companies are kind of sharing in that technical assistance. They can get up to $120,000, $100,000 of assistance in a year. So you get a team of people working on your project. So we had a team of people working on the drones. Sometimes we were dealing with water projects, kind of various, lots of different types of projects. But this is a way to leverage a little bit more money for the projects. So, and the requirements, we have an engineer or scientist that's working at Sandia or Los Alamos that will serve as a principal investigator, really heading up the project. They're working closely with a small company, understanding what the challenge is. The principal investigator talks to the company and me. And of course, we have to make sure what we're doing follows all the safety guidelines for the lab. And requirements for the small business, we ask to have one point of contact at the small business that'll be working with the engineer or scientist. And the idea, what really creates a great project is when you have an engineer and the company that communicates well. And a lot of times nowadays, it's what, through email or phone calls. Sometimes they plan to have meetings, every month. It kind of depends on the project. Where New Mexico Small Business Projects, we've been in all the counties. We've done agricultural types of assistances, working in northern New Mexico. There's a company that was having problems with the stock tank, the water tanks freezing for the cattle, and they were working on a solar pump, and we did some testing, put in sensors for a long time and figured out, what was the best solution so they could take that idea or take that prototype and use those results to make it more robust. So pretty much anything. We help companies, sometimes even looking at water usage. In Gallup, there's a glove manufacturing company. They wanted to reduce their water usage. So our scientists went into their plant and actually helped them to optimize a system to use less water, which in the state of New Mexico, that's always a good thing. And our metrics, we work with about 3,000 different companies since the year 2000. So every year, it might be about 150 or so companies. And of course, the idea, it's free for the companies to come to the program, but we ask that you fill out reports talking about, the assistance, were you able to hire people, increase funding, increase sales, maybe you got an SBIR, what was the impact? So we need that information to help us to show the state how this is affecting New Mexico. And how to apply, it's really simple. You go to our website. There's this orange button, submit request for assistance. It's NMSBA Program.org. And we really only need a sentence or two what you need help with. So, just saying, you're looking at the service industry maybe, and you need some help. Just a sentence or two, because what happens when you put that in, of course, we need to know your contact information, where you're located, you're a small business. And then within 5 business days, you'll have a project manager connecting with you. And then the next step, usually after that, then I find an engineer or scientist that has a background for this type of project. And then we work together. Usually I set up a meeting. One of the 3 of us can talk, let the engineer or scientist talk to the company, find out what you really need help with. And that helps clarify. We write a statement of work. The engineer starts working on the project. Usually, hopefully, is communicating with the company. And at the end, usually the deliverable is a written report. So the engineer summarizes what he did, summarizes test results. So it's a great program. And like I say, it's simple to apply. Just going to NMSBAprogram.org. That 1-page application, I just, a sentence or two, what you need help with. Then we call you, get some more information, talk to some of the scientists and engineers here, and try to set up a virtual meeting so we can understand what the challenge is and how we can help. And it's no cost to the business. We ask that you complete surveys, customer satisfaction surveys, and economic development surveys. But yeah, just to complete some surveys, you get free technical help. So, and if there's any questions, I think we might, I figure we're recording this, Chris. It looks like some of the people have dropped off.
Let me since we have an intimate group, let me allow the people on the call right now to speak. And I'll just let them speak their question.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's easier. If they have any.
This is Stacy Golden West. I just wanted to thank you very much. This is great information. I'm not sure it's particularly applicable to my business at this time, but I actually do know a few folks who I think would really appreciate the information. So I'll be passing it on.
Yeah, that's really how we get out so much of the word of mouth is, some ways we say it's the best kept secret in the state of New Mexico that you get this free technical help.
Really, truly wonderful.
Yeah.
And I will keep it in mind as well, because you never know.
Well,
you never know.
You. Yeah.
Thank you.
If anyone else has a question? Like I say, it's so simple to apply. Sometimes people are thinking, I'm not sure if this assistance is something readily available in the state of New Mexico at a reasonable cost. knowing it's a one-page application, really just filling in your name and your company, contact information, and a sentence or two. We deal with manufacturers and service industries, entrepreneurs, you name it. At first people, we deal a lot too with like the microbreweries and distilleries, because a lot of our engineers or on the weekends are, doing their microbreweries in their garage. So it's amazing, whether it's their regular experience or a hobby, there's, free help of all the experts at the national labs.
Judy, what are some of the common questions that people ask about the program or want from the program?
Well, the one question, of course, especially as people, entrepreneurs, as you're developing your latest, greatest, maybe solar panel, sometimes people do wonder, what happens about the intellectual property, who owns if we create a new invention or something. Because we usually say we like you to have a little bit more than just an idea, and it's great if you have a patent already, because then we can kind of say, yeah, but even if you don't, through way our assistance is written, that if intellectual property is created, and it's really actually pretty rare, that the company can elect title to it or license it. So knowing that we have companies coming with really cool new ideas, the state legislation said, yeah, let's write it into our terms and assistance document, basically our contracts, that if any new intellectual property is created, that the company can either elect title or license it. So, it's great that we have this free program, and it's really no risk. And like I say, since, NMSBAprogram.org, very simple application, you can feel free to give me a call or, go to the website and fill it out. It's pretty simple. Let's see. Knowing that the projects our money goes to the end of this year. So all our projects are finished hopefully by end of November, if not before. And then come January, we get our budget again. So come January, we get 2.4 million as a state tax credit. And right now we have funding. That was the things other people often ask. Do we have funding right now? Yes. We have funding for these individual projects. The leverage projects, that funding, we do a call in September and in January. But for these individual projects, we're pretty much open year round, trying to look for good projects and work with the small companies here in New Mexico.
And I see we have a new attendee, Vidiana. Vidiana, if you want to unmute and introduce yourself, and then you have the ability to ask any questions you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I apologize. I'm so late. I have 2 kids at home right now, and it was a big mission. I live in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and currently I'm a stay-at-home mom with a 4-month-old and a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And I don't have any questions right now directly. I just really I know nothing about business, and my husband and I have been looking into starting a small business in construction. So I just wanted to start learning like more of the basics right now.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for joining, and Christopher Garcia being the SBDC expert. He's such a great resource, and the SBDC is a great place when you're first looking, starting a company. We do the technical help, I always say Chris Garcia and SBDC, they do like everything else, right? He can help you, I'm sure, with the business planning and all that.
Thanks for the shout out, Judy. Yes, our mission is to build skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses. And we do that by providing no cost counseling and no or low cost workshops and webinars.
Yes.
Everybody who registered for today's webinar is actually a client of the SBDC.
Oh,
And
great.
I'm surprised we got a lot of people from Las Cruces. We have a great center director there. Her name is Joanne Garay, and she's at the Doña Ana Community College.
Oh, great.
I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to remind everybody that they will get a follow-up questionnaire about this webinar. And I made a PDF of the slides, and I will email those to everybody, those who registered and those who attended.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. All you do to help, small businesses in New Mexico. Like I say, we do the technical help, and Chris does all the other. They have, a free program too. So, it's like, there's a lot of help here in New Mexico for small businesses. So yeah, thanks so much.